And so I'm going to call this meeting of the Carson City School District School Board of Trustees to order. Agenda item 1 is adoption of the agenda as submitted for possible action. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion among board members? Do we have any public comment? And just for the record, Ms. Cortez notified me before we began that there was no emailed public comment. So there's no emailed public comment that. So I'll call the motion. All in favor? Aye. And the motion carries. And at this point, we'll move to agenda item 2, which is adjournment to closed session per NRS 288.2204 to discuss labor relations with the district's management representatives for discussion only. our brief recess, and we will go to agenda item 4, which is the flag salute. Molly Walt. Move on to agenda item 5, the superintendent's report. This item is for information only. Mr. Fueling.
Thank you, President Crossman. I am excited that we have made it through a school year. I have nothing else to report. Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item 6, board reports for information only. Do we have an update for the Nevada Association of School Boards? Trustee Varner.
Yes, I'll try to be brief. The joint meeting with NASB officers and board directors will be held in Ely on June 23rd. Director Harris and others are still working on an analysis from the legislative session, and more information about the session will be forthcoming to all the members in the near future. They've already begun planning for the annual conference, which will be held in Las Vegas on December 1st and 2nd. Planning is also ongoing for the September professional development training. And development of the Certified Public Officer Program is continuing. Feedback has been provided by board officers and directors, and a draft of the course has been provided to PullPack for their review in hopes of getting them on board, so they will continue providing the $1,000 incentive. And that's my report for NASB.
Thank you. Do you have a board report for your schools?
I do not.
Trustee Walker? Trustee Walt?
It's not really a report, but I do want to commend the high school graduation. For as many students as we had graduating, that graduation was an hour and 20 minutes long. And so, great job to Carson High School staff, administrators, safe grad, congratulations. Everybody did a wonderful job. And so thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Clapham?
I don't have anything.
Trustee Ramirez?
I don't have a report either.
Trustee Oppo?
None tonight.
Okay, and I do not have a report either. All of our principals are enjoying their first week of summer. So I will go ahead and move on to agenda item 7, which is association reports for discussion only. Do we have any association reports today? I know there's not one from Dr. Ward. And seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. We did not receive any email public comment, so at this time, public comments may be accepted in person, and the names of comments made by members of the public on any matter comments may be made by members of the public on any matter within the authority of this board. Please note that public comment will be taken on items marked for possible action before action is taken on such items, and members of the public are encouraged to comment on such items at the time they are being considered. Although members of the board may respond to questions and discuss issues raised during public comment, no action may be taken on such a matter until the matter is placed on an agenda for action at a meeting of the board. In making public comment, speakers are asked to come to the table or podium, sign in, speak into the microphone, and identify themselves for the record. Commentators are instructed to limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes and to not simply repeat comments made by others. Do we have any public comment tonight? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we will move on to agenda item 9, which is informational update on multi-tiered systems of support, also known as MTSS, and Project Aware in the Carson City School District. This item is for discussion only. Michelle Cleveland, come forward. Microphone, I turn. If you could just introduce your
Yes.
co-presenter, that'd be great. For the
Yes.
record.
So this is Stephanie Keating. She's going to be our new MTSS coordinator for our district. So I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of my presentation. But I wanted to introduce her to everyone tonight because she is new to our district. Okay. Wanted to share everything. I have my glasses on. Okay, we good? Okay, well, I'm Michelle Cleveland. If you haven't met me, I have been your MTSS coordinator and Project Aware coordinator for the past 2 years for Carson City. Formerly, I've been an administrator at Bordewick for 4 years prior to that, and overall been in education for 29 years. So I'm lucky to have this job, and I am excited to show you all the work that we've been doing in the past couple of years for both of these projects. So building multi-tiered systems of support. If you take a look at this picture, weave the cloth tightly so no child falls through. That is really a statement and a testament to what we do as educators, and I think that's our overall goal. What we try to do is to really make sure we weave the cloth and to support all of our students, all of our learners in every capacity. And so this is a great representation of what we try to do with our work here. So what is multi-tiered system of support? You probably have heard this acronym for the past couple of years. It's been around for a long time, but in a short nutshell, it's a comprehensive framework. It's designed to support academics, behaviors, and social emotional needs of all of our students in a school or in a district. So it's a framework, it's not a curriculum, and it's how we can help support all of our students. It provides a systemic approach to early intervention and supports ensuring that students receive appropriate assistance based on their individual needs. So that really is a nutshell of what this framework is about in all capacities. Key components of MTSS, they are three tiers. Our first tier is called our universal support tier, where all students are getting the same curriculum at the same time, so they are all have access to high quality instruction and support provided to all students. In the general education setting, students are exposed to evidence-based practices, differentiated instruction, and positive school climate. And then the last component of Tier 1 is continuous monitoring of student progress. So we as administrators, when we're looking at how we are implementing our curriculum and our behavioral supports, we take a look to see how well the students are responding to our overall Tier 1 educational pieces that we have in place there. This is an example of a positive behavior support system that would be at the Tier 1 level. Eagle Valley Middle School created this year, and all of our schools will have some sort of positive behavior matrix of expectations. So when you walk through your schools next year, you should see these expectations that are very similar in nature, prescribing what that Tier 1 universal expectation is of all of our students: being safe, being responsible, being respectful. And so they came up with this matrix this year, and all of our schools will have similar ones posted at their school sites coming up next year. So please look for those pieces. A second component of MTSS is the second tier, where we are looking at kids who maybe aren't being successful at that Tier 1 level. They say about 80% of the students are able to respond to our academic and behavioral expectations, but there is a 15 to 20% of our student population that would not respond very well. And so we are looking to help support those students and add additional interventions and supports for students who require a little bit more assistance. We would implement a small group intervention supplemental instruction, and progress monitoring to see how well those kids are responding to those interventions. And parents are also engaged in those intervention plans. They collaborate with the site teams between the administrators, the teachers, and the interventionists, and support staff, so that those students are getting the very best support that they can in that smaller group setting. And then the last tier is tier 3. If students we're finding after we progress monitor them and we've tried our intervention plans and we're just finding that they're not making the growth or they're not making the gains that we're hoping to see as a team over time, then we can look for more targeted interventions in a more specific manner with one-on-one supports and more specialists on board to help with developing a more instrumental plan to support individuals if they need a deeper intervention. So they're more intensive, they're more personalized with significant needs, individualized instruction, and more frequent progress monitoring to see how they are responding to those interventions. It's also very close collaboration between the teachers, the interventionists, community partners, so these are additional experts coming to the table, and families. So families are involved in all of these levels so that they are involved in what's happening with their students in all capacities. The benefits of implementing MTSS framework in our district is to truly overall improve the academic outcomes for all students. We want to be able to early identify students and struggling students and get interventions in place so that we can start closing that gap earlier on instead of being a reactive model, but being a proactive model. Increased collaboration among educators, support staff, and families, really trying to bridge that gap because sometimes we miss pieces of that loop. And so it's really important that we have that framework of systemic ways of how we are working with our families so that they feel empowered to help support their kids and that we as educators are supporting them in the best manner that we know how. And then really efficient use of resources and using data to drive our decisions, really taking a look at how we're implementing these interventions, measuring if students are really responding or not, and really taking a look at overall systemic system things that maybe need to be tweaked so that the framework becomes more viable in that tier 1 level so that we have more students really showing growth and being supported in our schools. So if you take a look at this triangle, this is a very typical picture of what MTSS looks like, and it's broken in half for you to just see academic systems and behavioral systems. And there is a third system, which mental health would be that same vein, and it still would have the 3 tiers. And so you can see that tier 1, everybody has access to tier 1 systems, so all students have access to curriculum. All students have access to positive behavior supports and preventative supports in the schools. And then all students, after we take a look at data, then we may do screeners to figure out who may need interventions in a small group setting, both in academics and behaviors. Help support those kids in some of those pieces of behaviors where they're not accessing the curriculum because they're having a lot of difficulties under, keeping themselves under control. And then all systems have tier 3 where if they are not being successful in that small group setting, that we can move them to tier 3 if they need that individual support in both academics or in behaviors and mental health. And just because that it's a triangle and it appears to be going up, a child can move from a tier 1 to a tier 3 level and can plop back down to tier 2, and they can go back down to tier 1 if they've secured strategies in either academics or behaviors, mental health, all 3 things. And so it's a very fluid motion. It's not a child needs interventions in academics and they stay in tier 2 or tier 3. The hope is to really capture them, intervene with them, and move them back down in the triangle. So that's really the goal of this whole framework. The second project that I'm a coordinator for, Project Aware, is advancing wellness and resilience in education. It's a federal grant aimed at improving mental health services in our schools and communities. So MTSS and Project Aware are complementary initiatives. They work together to create comprehensive system of support for students in academic, behavioral, and mental health needs. So like I showed you with the triangle, it really is another vein of that triangle where our mental health supports is needed to help support our kids in their mental health well-being so that they can attend to classwork and so that they can attend to all the things that we're asking them to do in education and being mindful of the whole child and making sure that we have services to wrap them around and support them. So in aligning MTSS and Project Aware, I work very closely with our school social workers, counselors, and outside community providers to help support our students. So again, the Universal Mental Health Promotion, Tier 1, we integrate social emotional learning and mental health promotion in our schools. So all of our schools have adopted evidence-based social emotional curriculum that they are teaching characters and strategies of self-awareness and strategies to help support them at that general level of what it is to be a sound and good whole person and to know when they are being stressed out. So we're really trying to teach our kids how to be better citizens to each other and to respect one another. And that's what that piece is about at the Tier 1 level. Tier 2, we collaborate with our MTSS teams and other mental health professionals to provide targeted group interventions. We are very blessed to have school social workers at all of our school sites, and they work very, very hard to support our kids so that they can get back to class or that they are not missing much school so that they can help bring them back to where they need to be. But our school social workers work really well with our students in supporting them when they're having a crisis or when they really need just additional ear to talk to when they're having stressors at home. And so that Tier 2 level, they are really working on supporting intervention plans, and they're developing themselves as school social workers to help support our schools better in that vein of need. Tier 3, coordinated efforts with the MTSS teams, students who really are having a crisis and need a trauma response. We have 2 MOUs with partners in our community, Carson Counseling Center and Carson Tahoe Behavioral Health have partnered with me to help deliver therapies to our students with parents' consent in the school settings. And that is really a Tier 3 level where we are trying to get our students access to counseling and therapy without the wait time. And in the school setting, our school counselors and administrators have been very supportive in providing a private setting, and students and the therapists come to the campus to deliver therapy for students to help create less of a barrier of trying to find a way to get them to a building. And with insurance, both of the providers have sources of grant supports to help support anyone that does not have the ability to pay or is on Medicaid. And so their promise to us is to deliver supports within 5 days of a crisis referral from our social workers. And they have been excellent in working with us this year. So it's been just a great thing to see start unfold and happening here in our schools. So currently, going through the MTSS framework, there has been a 3-year rollout. And last year was our first year. Bordewick Fritch and Mark Twain and Carson High started going through the MTSS trainings, formalized trainings with the, was it the state regional? Yeah, state regional MTSS teams where everybody is going through different tiered workshops. This year, we have Tier 1 and Tier 2 schools went through, Carson Middle School, Fremont, Eagle Valley Middle School, and you'll see Carson High School again. Because they're our largest school, it takes them a lot longer to get their teams up and running. And so it takes more time, and they've added more team members to their team so they can help support putting this framework in place. And then next year, we have Pioneer, Empire, and Seeliger, our last 3 schools, to go through our Tier 1 workshop trainings so that everybody is going to be aligned in this framework of understanding and delivering academics, behaviors, and mental health supports in our schools. So we are developing in that framework as well. So that's where we're at currently. I wanted to show you this. Mr. Varner has been a part of our district leadership team that looks at our framework as a district level to see how we are implementing the framework so far. And the DSFI is the District Systems Fidelity Inventory, which basically goes through different evaluation components to see how well we're implementing pieces of the MTSS framework in a district level. And so you can take a look from last year to this year. We've grown quite a bit in most of those areas posted there. And we continue to work on all of those capacities. So as you can see, stakeholder engagement is 0%, so that's going to be a huge goal for next year, making sure all of you know what's going on, making sure our community knows what's going on. So it's going to be really huge that the last 3 schools are coming on board, so all of us in Carson City are going to be able to speak to it better and be able to really talk about the framework and how it's being implemented at your school sites. And with training, with Miss Stephanie Keating, we are growing in our capacity. She is excellent training. She just gave a training June 6th to our entire district and is an expertise in behaviors and special ed and MTSS framework. And so we're really lucky to have her as my partner and coach to help support our MTSS teams at each of our school sites so that we can continue to develop our knowledge and how to address some of the things that we're working towards. Currently, all of our 10 sites are developing and refining their implementation of the MTSS framework in academics, behaviors, and mental health. Even those schools that haven't been formally gone through Tier 1 training, we have been aligned in our discussions in our admin meetings, our principal meetings, and how we are going to support our students better. Positive behavior support systems, like I said, and behavioral expectations are going to be posted at every school site, so please look for those. School social workers are a part of every school site MTSS team. We did have a couple of openings this year, but we've been able to hire, and so we are fully staffed with social workers at every single school site for next year, so I'm really excited about that. And they themselves are going through professional development so that they can help deliver best practices at that Tier 2 group level so that we can really start working with our kids a little bit better in that social emotional capacity. Instructionally, all administrators and teams of educators and specialists are engaged in professional development by attending the MTSS trainings throughout the year. They are definitely learning a deeper understanding of providing targeted academic and behavioral interventions. It's been a lot of learning, and so I think our administrators are at a point where they are wanting more so that they can really refine their practices with the kids. The district leadership team is consistently meeting, and we meet about every other month right now, and we work as a team to look at the holes that we have in our district system and really trying to start tightening up our framework at the district level so that our site administrators have the pathway of supports, even at the district level, to help deliver the framework as needed for interventions. Student referral and access to clinical mental health therapy is happening regardless of the ability to pay. I'm also working on additional providers we started with one, and then I ended up having two providers this year, and the need is so high, as you know. I'm going to be adding Serenity and hopefully one other community provider to help support our kids in that really smart and specific, fast manner. So that's what I'm working on for next year. So with grant funding, we are developing additional contracts to provide 24-hour mental health access for families and staff. We are adopting Care Solace platform, which that platform as well, it's an anonymous 24-hour platform that parents and families at any time, if they are in need of help, they will help connect families to providers so that they can get the help that they need either as a family or for their students, and that's outside of Project Aware, so we're just trying to keep layering supports for our families here. We're gonna continue to have 24-hour access to Safe Voice, and that is, I know that you know about the anonymous reporting if there is a concern for a threat at any time. Students or families can report that at any time. And then there's the 988 suicide crisis lifeline. And all of these things, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline and Safe Voice are on the front page of our district website and on our parent tab for supports. So I know that we're going to be working on our district webpage, but we'll keep adding those things so that they're an easy find, easy get, and everybody can have access at any time. Fritch Elementary, I want to report they have applied for the state MTSS recognition system award for MTSS. And so we'll see if they get an award in August, and they've done some really great things. All of our schools have done really great things, but I would say that Fritch is probably the front runner in putting the framework as rigorous in place as most of our other schools. So I'm excited to see how that works out for them. And then through additional grant funding, I'm grant funded, and my position for both of these initiatives is now going to be split with Miss Keating here so that we can help deliver more coaching and support for our teams as is needed as we develop as a district system. And this is my famous little statement: it takes a village to support our kids. So it's not about one initiative, it's about all of us coming together. So any questions? That's it.
I think one of the, I apologize, I said, go ahead, Mike. Sorry, Molly. I just wanted to highlight, I think in addition to supporting the kids, Care Solace staff could use that as well. So we're also supporting our entire team. And so I think that's a highlight because times are tough. And so that's a resource that's also available for staff members.
Yes,
So I
it's
just wanted
available
to
for
point that
everybody,
out.
yes. Oh, yeah. Tasha just prompted me. So the other piece of Project Aware too is a 5-year federal grant. Thank you for that, Mike. Yes, absolutely, it is for anybody, staff included. We are also going to be working towards putting a platform in place for our social workers and the work of our mental health providers in our schools to have a Medicaid viable platform. So the work that our social workers do, the work that our school psychologists do, any BCBAs that may be on contract, we can reap the benefits by having a HIPAA-compliant platform to collect services and bill Medicaid, and then the district starts reaping the benefit of having that funnel of income come into place. So that is one of the goals of SAMHSA, which is the entity that has put forth Project Aware. And so that is one of the end goals. And so we are working towards that platform right now so that we can support kids. And it does not matter if they are on an IEP or not right now. Students who are on IEPs, if they have related services like speech pathology or OT or PT services. We could bill Medicaid through that, and that's how the district gets money through that avenue. So now I'm building the product, if you will, through BH Works for our mental health folks. So the work that they're doing at the tier 2 and tier 3 level is billable, and we can start hopefully having some funding from that. So it's another big piece of the project.
Thank you. So, and I don't, if you don't have the answer to this, maybe tomorrow, but what is the percentage of parent engagement in tiers 2 and 3? Are you at 100% engagement? Because I know that you say that, especially at tier 2, you look for the families and whatnot. What is the percentage that you would be able to say the family and the parent engagement is? And if you can't
Yeah.
say, I can
Yeah.
get that to you at a later date, that's fine. But I'm just curious because I know that it's not going, you need the families, you need the parents' engagement, and it would be interesting to find the percentage on that. Okay, next question. You mentioned a team, like at each site.
Yes.
Who makes up that team? Like employees? Is it a teacher? How do you recruit them?
So there has to be an administrator on the team. So the principal, vice principal, there's a dean on there, so administrators. Teachers are on there, and they, right now, as we're developing, they're asking for who on their teams want to be a part of their site. IET teams, instructional coaches are on there, our social workers are on there. I have resource teachers or a special ed person on each of the teams right now. Supporting those teams. Yeah. And as they get to like that tier 3 level, then we have additional specialized folks coming to the table as well.
Sorry, Tasha Fuson for the record. I just want to answer your question, Trustee Walt. 100% of our parents are involved in the tier 2, tier 3 planning part. We have to have parental permission in order to move students into more restrictive tiers. So even when we're dealing with behavior, for instance, when we write restorative behavior plans for students, parents have to be involved in that planning process and they sign off on the plans. So we're currently working with our schools to formalize some of those processes using the state notification letter, et cetera. But students are not placed into tiered interventions without families being informed and consulted on it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. But what about accountability? Are any of those tiers where the parents might actually be held accountable for the child's behavior?
That's a difficult question to ask or answer, excuse me. We try to make parents partners in the intervention plans that we put in place for our students. So in terms of accountability, I really think it's more of that teaming type of approach to say, well, if we do this at school, we need the support from you at home, and then having that clear communication back and forth in terms of what's going on in the home environment, what's going on in the school environment. So in terms of any kind of like legal accountability, it really doesn't exist. But we do try to work really closely with them in that partnership model. Thank you for clarifying that. Just to follow up, I appreciate that you are establishing that working relationship. You're building that relationship with the parents, and that's, I think, a very good thing. So thank you.
I support the program, you know that. I was just wondering, the reason behind it is the increase in academic achievement of children, right? How are we monitoring if that's successful? I mean, are you monitoring each individual child that's involved? Or, I mean, how you determine if the academic achievements are increasing?
That looks a little bit different at each level. So read by grade 3, our state initiative, is actually part of the response to intervention process that is supported and mandated by the state. So all of our students, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade who score below the 40th percentile on their MAPS assessment. So MAP is a universal screener that we utilize to assess students in the fall, winter, and spring. And when students are scoring below that 40th percentile, we have to write individualized learning plans for them. So in many cases, our schools who are a little further ahead have actually started writing math plans. Michelle knows that. They did that at Boardwalk Bray when she was there, including the math part on that. So they're then progress monitored as required by state law. And parents are notified of that. They're part of that process as well. In the secondaries, that's really, I'm going to be honest with you, that we've struggled with, and that's where it's really been important to try to put this framework into place for our secondary schools so that they can be systemic instead of being reactive. Truly and honestly, when you take a look at summer school, for instance, we were just talking about it prior to the board meeting. We have over 300 high schoolers that are in summer school currently with a waiting list. And we had over 100 middle schoolers that were on the needs list to do summer school. So we're being reactive instead of proactive meeting the needs. So we're really trying to help our principals put plans in place. Training is a big part of that. So the 3-year rollout plan was simply because we don't have the resources to actually train all 10 schools at the same time. So we needed to be able to grow and build to capacity. Is the exact reason Michelle's done a phenomenal job to the point where she's so busy now we had to split her responsibilities, which is why Stephanie's joining us, right? Because we needed to, the work is out there. To be able to help train the schools, make sure they have the resources they need to put the framework into place, and then to make sure they have coaching around it. So we're just building that. So where you don't see it as much at the secondary level right now, really it's based on whether or not kids are passing credits. We want to be able to flip that to be proactive and start intervening before they fail versus intervening after they fail. So that is the hope, is that we'll start to see those failure rates go down. We do use MAP in the middle schools still. We're trying to work with our middle schools and how they use their MAP assessment data to actually align students or set up students for intervention programming. Stephanie came on the 6th and it was amazing. We were at the governor's mansion. We had all of our schools there. They had all of their MTSS teams. We had them look at their master schedules. We had them build in their intervention blocks during the school day, because it's not good enough to say, come after school and we're going to help you then. Many of our kids can't access at that point in time. So building that in, building in who was going to be responsible for what, who served what roles, how can we hold everyone accountable to make sure they're doing their part so that we are bringing those resources to families. So that is, we spent an entire day on June 6th building that, those plans with our schools. So every school at this point in time has an intervention plan for both behavior and academics ready to go for the first day of the school year.
And I'm glad you said that about the behavior, because that's one of the things I think is so great about the multi-tiered systems of support, is that really it's about allowing kids to access their education. And so for some kids, there's barriers academically. For other kids, it's behaviorally. Sometimes it's home life that is interfering. And so that's why when you have those study teams, like you were asking about the parent point, it's like, okay, the teacher is going to blank, the student is going to blank, the school will blank, the parents will, so that everybody comes together and supports. And so it's really meeting the needs of kids and framing it in a positive light. And so schools are a safe place where the expectations are known by everyone who accesses the campus, from the students, the teachers, the administrators, parents, so that it's kind of like, well, you know how we play the game, we're respectful, responsible, and safe every day. And so it's just kind of setting that framework. And so I think that it's much more than just academics. It's truly addressing student needs and the differences in their needs. And I think that's what makes it powerful.
Thank you, Trustee Walker. I also want to point out that back when Michelle was showing you our district's fidelity inventory, when it said 0% stakeholder involvement, let me clarify what 0% stakeholder involvement means. That means on our district leadership team, we're trying to build that to capacity. So within our first year of implementation, we were just working with internal stakeholders. What they're wanting us to do, which makes sense, is add external stakeholders, meaning add some parents to the team, add some students to the team, add some community members to the team. Trustee Werner was the very first step in that, because part of it was to make sure that we had a school board member actively participating and being involved in some of the decision-making at the district level. So that's a step one, but that's what that means. So our goal is really going to be around, as Michelle said, the PR part of it. Now that every school is going to be involved in that training, we all speak the same language, if you will. We can all communicate in the same way, and then we're going to make sure that we have the right stakeholders on that leadership team so that we can start getting the word out to our community partners, to our parents, and to our students to say, this is what happens in the Carson City School District if you need support with academics, or if you need support with behavior, or if you need support with mental health. So we've been building so that we had something to communicate about, instead of just saying, well, you know what we'd like to do? This sounds really awesome. Let's do this. We're not there yet, right? We wanted to have it in place so we could say, this is how it happens. This is what it looks like in our district. So this is a big step of it. Mr. Varner himself actually asked and said, hey, you guys are going to come and bring this to the rest of the trustees so they know all of the excellent work and all the foundational work that's been going on in the district for the past 2 years. So again, I want to thank Michelle for that. And it's a good problem to have, having to bring more people on board, right? Because that means we're being able to actually serve our students better, and we're going to be able to help our families get the supports that they need for their students. So,
Any other questions?
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
What are some ways that you are considering reaching out to the parents to have them be part of this team?
I know you haven't started yet, Stephanie, but would you like to come up with it? No, I'm just kidding. Part of that, I think we actually need to involve, obviously, all of our normal public relations components that we send the information out, but each of the schools at the very beginning of the year will be notifying families of what structures they have in place. Schools are now building it into their school improvement plan, so we're sending out school improvement plan goals and just making sure that it's front and center. As Michelle said, a lot of it is being super visual and having those behavior matrices up in the hallways, sending home with kids, so families are seeing it and they're asking what it's about, what it means. We take for granted a lot of times that our students know how to act in school, and that's what those behavior matrix is about. It's really identifying what does good behavior look like, good citizenship look like in a classroom. What does it look like in the library? What does it look like in the hallway? Is there a difference? We need to actually explicitly teach our children that so they know what our expectations are. So communicating that to our families, so then the families know, what does this look like at home, so that we can be better partners. So you're going to see a lot of that PR part really start to permeate all areas of how we communicate out. But again, we needed something to communicate about, but I'm feeling really strong about where we are in terms of our implementation. So we'll be able to now celebrate our successes, but also be able to outline where we need to go next, right? What our next steps are.
So thank you for the presentation. I think it's a great system. I'm still learning about it. I mean, like every system, it's always work in progress. You know, you're kind of learning what works well, what doesn't work well. And I really commend everybody, because when you bring up, we have to teach kids what the expectations in school are. I think now more than ever, certain people fell off the rails. I mean, when I was a kid and my kids were in school, you made it pretty clear what was expected in school. At least basic stuff. You behave, you listen, you do your work. And now we're having to remind people that you have to do these things and more. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges you're either facing or you're expecting to face? You know, I kind of think, from my uneducated perspective on this, that partnership between the schools and the parents is a big thing. You know, the schools expect a certain amount from the students and expect this partnership from the parents. And I would think some parents say, okay, well, that's great, but we expect more from you. And that dynamic, how that works. But I'm wondering, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges or hurdles you see facing the program, or you expect to see facing the program?
I'll jump in and then you ladies can add on to this. But I think as Michelle and I have worked real closely together the past couple of years, resources are always a real big concern. This takes a lot of training for school staffs. And that training means we actually have to pull them out for and have substitutes, right? We have to build in that time. Sometimes we forget that, people don't come out of college knowing how to do everything you need to do as a teacher, right? So we actually have to teach our teachers and our principals how to do these things. So the resource of time and the ability to have that opportunity to let them plan together and build what that system looks like, and then work together to problem solve and look at their data to say, yes, this is working, or no, it's not. How can we tweak that? What more training do we need to bring to our staffs, et cetera? So it's a big lift. It's not a little thing. It's a big ask, and it's a big resource part, but it's important that we do that, because the alternative is to just ignore the challenges that our students are experiencing. The one thing that I'm very excited about, luckily there's a lot of money being funneled into school districts regarding around mental health supports. So we've been able to go out for grant funding to support that. But we need the support of our board in terms of those resources. That's a big, not necessarily this board, because you guys are really supportive, but I'm just saying, I know that's an area that other districts are challenged with. So when Superintendent Fueling says, hey, we have 10 interventionists because which are teachers on special assignment in all of our schools, because we need to have interventionists in place so that when we're pulling the students out for those tier 2, tier 3 academic interventions, there's somebody there to do it, right? You just can't say, oh, well, let me have a parapro who's not an educator come in and do academic interventions with a student. You need a highly skilled, specialized person who knows how to do that and who's been trained to do that if you're going to be effective. So understanding, that means that sometimes there might be a long-term sub in that third grade classroom. We hate to see that. But let's not take this intervention out of this interventionist role and put them in that third grade classroom, because guess what? That interventionist serves every single one of the students on that campus. And yes, you might solve a problem for these 22 students, but you've now created a problem for the other 500 that go to that school. So having understanding from our board, having understanding from our community to understand what it is that we're trying to do, and to let us use the resources the way we need to in order to support our students. That's what we need, and that's what the biggest challenges is. I mean, we watched Washoe. There's the reason why Stephanie's working with us now. She's also a Carson High grad and a Carson student. Just want you to know, so she's coming back home, but it took us a while to get her back home. But Washoe County took and put all of their TOSAs back in the classroom. Seemed like a really short-term solution to a really long-term problem. But if you have 100 vacancies and you have 50 TOSAs, and you take 50 TOSAs out and put them in the classroom, you still have 50 empty classrooms. And guess what you don't have now? You don't have support at the district level to help those long-term subs in the other classrooms, because you've just put them all back in the classroom. So again, having that understanding from teachers, administrators, school board, community, parents, that the resources we need are very important to make sure that the program is successful. I see that being one of the biggest challenges that we have, is that understanding, that commitment to what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish.
So Tasha, just to be consistent, because I spent a lot of times fighting for this when I got elected. So there is no replacement of a highly qualified teacher in every classroom. And so I think that, these are really hard times when it comes to staffing. And so I think that we really have to find a way to balance that, because we certainly don't want third grade classrooms that are led by long-term subs if we can avoid that. And I think that that's the real hard conversation, that how do you balance this and really those academic needs of kids, because there's no replacement for first grade, third grade, second grade. You don't get that strong foundation in just 30 minutes with an interventionist for the lowest 20% or 40% of your kids isn't going to cut it. And so I think that this is kind of the prelude to a real conversation of what does that look like and how do we balance that to meet the needs of kids. And so I want to be consistent. I've said that from my first day on here. And so I just want to say that is something I'll push for. So just so you know.
I think the other celebration I'd like to tell you about is we are developing a district intervention assistance team. So these two ladies will be part of that team. So when our schools hit a wall and they don't know what to do, because Tasha is climbing bookcases and throwing desks and, right, really disrupting the whole learning environment for everyone else in that classroom, because this is our reality, right? This is literally truly what happens. And the school hits that that wall and they don't know what to do, then they can call on our district intervention assistance team. So then these ladies with a couple of their other colleagues in our district will be able to go over, be able to workshop with those schools, be able to come alongside if need be, coach, teach next to them, help them intervene and build intervention plans that will support students. So that was a really big part that we thought was really important, because schools need the support, they need the resources, they need somebody to be able to do that. Because again, what happens, I agree with you, Trustee Walker, but then you have that licensed teacher in that classroom who now quits, and it's 4 weeks into the school year, and now you have a long-term sub in there, right? And no one's to support that. So it's a domino. If we cannot be proactive in providing support that our schools need, then we lose all around.
Well, thank you for this very informative presentation and the framework. It's everything we do in education is balancing too. And so I like the direction of this support, and I like that we're building in systems to help support all students.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 10, which is informational update on collaborative assistance and reliable educator support, which is CARES program in the Carson City School District. For discussion only, Mary Pray.
Hello.
All right. Do I need to do something with this, Renee? Let's see. Let's get rid of this one. All right, so I'm Mary Pray. I'm the Professional Learning Coordinator and Parent Engagement Coordinator for our district. Carson Cares, I sat before you just about a year ago to talk about how we can have more educator support, especially for our early career educators, our new teachers, so that we can do some more retention. And Joe asked me, when can you put this into place? And I said, right now. And so I'm going to give you an update for this year on how that went. So our roadmap, which apparently slides does not translate very well to PowerPoint. Our roadmap is we're going to talk first about Carson Cares, and then the next thing on the agenda is me talking about Ready to Rock Kinder. So we're going to talk a little bit about the program for 22-23, the data, and then the changes that we're going to be doing to the program based on that data. So as a reminder, Carson Cares is our collaborative assistance and reliable educator support. And really it was created to add those layers of wraparound support to our educators, not just our new educators, but our veteran educators. Mentorship was reimagined to add more mentors. We used to have one per site. This year, we had 67 new hire teachers that were paired with 49 mentor teachers across our district. Only 2 of the new teachers refused to take part in mentorship. Mentorship consisted of both first and second year mentees. We took new probationary teachers who were new to us the year prior and paired them also with mentors, so that we're continuing to make sure that for 2 years, our new teachers have a mentor. It gives that differentiated support as well, because our second year mentees don't need as much as our first year mentees. 40 mentors attended a 2-day paid training over the summer, which was well received and well attended, and the mentors felt they took a lot away from that. We held monthly mentor roundtables all year. They attended those 2-hour paid trainings each month. And learn it gave them the opportunity to work together collaboratively to improve the program as we went, what things work, what things need to be changed. And they got some more coaching training and collaborating with each other on problems of practice and mentoring. Our big focus that we were moving new teachers from logistics, where do I get these forms? How do I, get a bus for a field trip? To really reflecting on becoming more proficient in instruction and goal setting for themselves. So the topic of mentor training was really a hot button topic when I was at the Learning Forward conference in Nashville. I attended all of the mentor and coaching pieces, and everybody's question was, well, how do you pick mentors and how do you train mentors? And so I developed the training program with RPDP with Kristen Campbell, and in Washington, D.C. in December, my presentation on how we trained our mentors and our program here in Carson City is going to be featured as one of the 260 sessions. I'll be presenting in Washington, D.C., supporting mentorship and telling everybody the great things we're doing here in Carson City. So I also showed you last year that we were going to create an educator support team to get requests from teachers, any teacher across the district, not just our new teachers. We created a form. Over the year, we had 11 requests for responses. And our goal this coming year is to make this more visible to teachers and more accessible on our website. It's kind of buried underneath tech requests and those kinds of things. So it's going to be more of a forefront so that teachers know where they can get information. We got requests from all across the board, from all of our different school sites. The areas of support that were most often requested were technology-enhanced curriculum, requests for Leanne to come and help with different technology things, curriculum, one person on NEPF, and classroom management, things like that, differentiation. The thing that helped for teachers was that they were able to request a broad variety of services. You can see even at the bottom, they were able to put in an other if it didn't fit. So they were able to get help with any of those things they needed. I received the ticket, and then I sent out who would be the best person, a curriculum coordinator, an instructional coach, or Leanne, or myself. So data. What data did we collect over this year to see whether or not we were effective? So we got a program through grant funding called Kick Up, which they worked very well with me in creating this program. We got it up and running during third quarter. You can see that 212 hours were spent by mentors and mentees across our district just in that third and the beginning of fourth quarter when I took this data. The one thing we really wanted to see is what were we effective in reaching that goal? Were we meeting people about instruction, or were we meeting people about logistics? And so through this program, I'm able to break down, because they have a little form they fill out on what they're meeting about. So you can see that admin duties, which includes grading, IC, those kinds of things, were at the top. PLC, goal setting, co-planning, analyzing student work. So we're seeing that even though admin duties are on the top, when we were looking at the end of the year, there was probably a lot around grading and closing out that end of the year time. The focus area coverage shows that the instructional planning was at the top, which is really what we wanted to see. About 63% of the time through third and fourth quarter, the mentors and mentees were meeting around instruction, classroom culture and management, and those other things that help run the classroom. So if our goal was to spend the bulk of our time increasing instructional capacity of our new teachers, I feel that our mentors are really working hard to make sure we're doing that. So I conducted 3 surveys: mentors, mentees, and admin. The mentor survey was a reflection of their year. I feel that I'm meeting the expectations in regard to meeting with my mentee, the instructional piece. Most teachers feel they're mostly there, the mentors. They worry that, like all teachers, am I doing enough for my mentor, mentee? Am I really doing enough? Could I be doing more? And I have to keep telling them, you're doing a great job meeting with your people. I have coached my mentee through at least one goal-setting cycle. Their goal was to get through at least one this year, so most of them reached that goal. And my most important thing to ask them was, do you plan to continue to be a mentor next year? And 70% said they did. I only had a few teachers leave, and most of the ones who left being mentor were actually people who were resigning or moving on to other things. The new hires got one, the mentees got one about which of the following supports they've experienced so far in the school year. So in trying to show what wraparound services that we are providing, you can see that 92%, almost 93% said they were participating in mentorship of the 27 who are attending my new teacher academy. 74% the NEPF professional learning on those minimum days, and then new teacher academy. So they all, most all of our new hires went through both new teacher academy and mentorship. Some of the other things that you can see is a lot of them experience that instructional coaching at their site. Of course, that's our elementary folks, the instructional coaches, and then curriculum coordinators. I asked them, based on the supports listed, what did you find the most useful and why? 46% said mentorship was the most useful support that they received. 35 said the new teacher academy and the NEPF. And then there was a tie for third place between the instructional coaches and technology integration. The responses were overwhelmingly positive, and I just wanted to point out some of the highlights when they said, and why. My mentor helped me so much. I would not have been able to be successful this year without her constant guidance and willingness to help me. I can't say enough good things about my mentor. It was helpful to have another teacher in my grade level who could help me with any questions and help me come up with strategies to help me be successful. A lot of people felt the new teacher academy was helpful because they felt it was a collaboration. They're in similar situations. And in addition to hearing other new teacher stories and ideas, we were given advice, strategies, and ideas to implement. So that collaboration between the new teachers coming together was really vital for them to feel successful. And then the admin. So 6 of our 10 principals responded to my survey, which mirrored the survey that the mentees got, so that I got some of that same information. Which of the following supports have your new teachers experienced so far this school year? So the principals were able to show which of those supports they felt were really visible in their building. And you can see mentorship, NEPF, and new teacher academy there on the top. Based on the supports listed above, in your opinion, what did you observe to be the most useful and why? So these are what those administrators said: mentorship, curriculum coordinators, mentorship and coaching, site mentorship, mentors are available almost immediately, instructional coaching, instructional coaches, and all of it. So I think that the admin have been very supportive this year as we've gone in through this first year of the program, and in giving their mentors that ability to meet with their mentees and work within their buildings. I believe my new teachers have the support they need to successfully meet the expectations of their role as teacher, because ultimately that's our goal: increase that instructional capacity. And do the admins see that? 83% said they agreed that their new teachers have the support they needed to be successful this year. Can they point out examples of strategies they've seen incorporated? And most could see strategies that have been implemented through new teacher academy or NEPF training. And participating in mentoring has increased my new teachers' ability to be effective in their role. Overwhelmingly, they agreed that it was definitely effective, and nobody disagreed, so where the rubber meets the road, my intention was to see if we can increase retention of new teachers, our early career educators. Historical data that we've looked at That middle place, that number of probationary teachers, that's the teachers within their first 3 years of teaching. In 2018-19, we lost 15, 19-29, 2021, 7, and then 21-22 last year, we lost 13 of our probationary teachers. This year, we had 26 total resignations in the district. 5 of them were probationary teachers. Of the probationary teachers who resigned, 3 were second-year teachers that were not taking part in the formal mentorship from this year. And 1 left prior to the start of school in August, so didn't even get a chance to do any of that. Only 1 of my new hire teachers is resigned this school year, and she's leaving for California to be with family. She's away from family. She's young and wants to go back home. So of all of those new hire teachers we supported with mentorship, we only had the 1 resignation, which I thought was pretty great. Changes for school year 23-24. So through surveying our new teachers and our mentors and admin, we're going to make a couple of changes. The lift of the program, especially if you're a brand new teacher, was a tough lift for them. We split down to 2 goal-setting cycles in the year. We had originally intended for 3, alternating with the new teachers getting to observe master teachers. So in the first and third quarter, they'll be subbed out so that they can go observe a master teacher or teachers that can improve their practice by seeing some of those great things. And then second and fourth quarter, they're going to set a goal around their problems of practice, something they're having difficulty with in class or something they want to improve. And then they'll set a goal and their mentor teacher will come observe them and give them feedback. One of the big things that I think AJ heard a bunch was combining the new teacher academy and the mentor roundtable. The mentors felt like they didn't know exactly what the new teachers were hearing in their training, so it was hard for them to support what they heard around the NEPF or those pieces. So it's going to be combined, new teacher and academy and mentor roundtable in a site-based monthly meeting where the new teachers and the mentors will both be able to hear the information about the NEPF pieces that they need to put into place, and then they'll have time to work on what that looks like and set their goals right then and there. So they'll have that facilitated time. Then the new teachers will leave, and then we'll have our mentor roundtable with coaching practice and collaboration. This will also allow the sites more autonomy within their own programming because it looks a little different at each site. There was also a request to add more mentors, secondary and specialized. Secondary especially, they feel like it would be better for their teachers to have mentors in their departments that can help them with things. We have mentors that are broad-based, but they thought it would be helpful to have more. And we have also, Christy Lennox has agreed to fund additional SPED mentors for the sites. So we'll also have that. And then CTE mentors. So those changes will go into effect next year. I think that's all I have. Yep, that's all I have for that. Any questions?
Go ahead, Trustee Varner.
I'd just like to say, I'm glad you're doing this. Seems like you're doing a good, the job is working out very well with these new teachers and everything, right? And I'm glad you're collecting the data that you're doing because I think it really shows the success of the program. So I just think you did a very good presentation and you're doing a great job in this mentorship.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mary, same thing. Thank you. I think, the results you showed with the retention already in the short amount of time, from last year, is noticeably improved. Yeah. And, we don't have enough data points yet, but I can't see how this wouldn't be successful year after year. And it hits home for me because I'm related to someone that's a new teacher, very new teacher, that's, going to benefit from mentoring. And then I don't want to call her a veteran teacher, but an experienced teacher that's going to be mentoring. And so I think, it's positive, it's exciting, and I think it's needed. So, we ask a lot of our staff at all levels, and, you need someone to go to and ask for help sometimes.
Well, I think our district has been awesome at allowing me to really run with the program and to compensate our mentors and our new teachers for attending these things, because it is an ask. It's an ask to come after school and spend 2 hours. It's an ask to go every week to meet with a teacher when you're still trying to prep for a classroom too. So I give kudos to Tasha and AJ for allowing me to run with those and for allowing us to support our teachers.
I couldn't stop smiling throughout your whole presentation because I am a firm believer that mentors are a must. And so you're doing an amazing work. And congratulations for going to Washington, D.C. and representing our district. So good luck with that. I know you're going to have a lot of interest from the people who participates or who attends your presentation. So good luck.
We'll keep
And
spreading it nationally.
Yes, and thank you so much for what you're doing. This is amazing.
Okay, go ahead.
And probably thanks also to the teachers and the mentors who actually put in the work, because it's not mandatory.
No.
And to be successful in this job, there's a lot of extra work that really goes into it. You go through college and then you get in the classroom and you realize what you really need to learn. And I mean, and that's what really happens. And so these people are putting in the work to become the best they can be in this job. And so, you know, it's a commitment. So thanks to them and kudos to them also.
Amen. Absolutely.
Thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 10, which is oops, that's the one I just did. I'm crossing it off. Agenda item 11, the informational update on Ready to Rock kindergarten platform in the Carson City School District for discussion only. Mary, pray again.
All right. So year 2, and of course, I had to create another new program. I promised Tasha no new programs next year. Ready to Rock Kinder really came about organically through listening to teachers and administration at the beginning of last year, that less and less of our kids were coming to kindergarten ready to go, either socially, behaviorally, academically, and what were the things that we could do to help some of that. And so putting on my parent engagement hat, the thought was to create a program that would really allow Carson City School District to partner with parents of incoming kindergartners. So I held 6 parent nights, one at each elementary school. Over 50 families were served at those elementary sites, and our goal being to partner with them in helping the kindergartners be prepared for school by providing resources, information, and the specialized summer programming, which is currently happening. Yeah, I know several of you at the last board meeting were like, Ready to Rock Kinder. What is that? I see that at every site so far. So the parents got an informational presentation talking about what is readiness, what are some of the expectations that they'll have in kindergarten, what kinds of growth mindset they can instill in their kids now to help them be successful. And then we gave them some resources that they could, even if they're not coming to summer school, could use over summer. And some of those resources were little packets to work with Play-Doh and to cut. We gave a kindergarten readiness handbook that's kind of like a workbook with flashcards and practice pages. There's a Ready to Rock Kinder parent guide, which talks about how important reading and playing games with your children are, and how to really do some of those things that parents don't consider, like transitioning your child from activity to activity. Most kids do self-selected activities all day long. I'm going to play my iPad now I'm going to play, now I'm going to eat. And we don't think about how tough it is for those kids who do that all the time to now go to school and have someone say, no, we're not going to do that right now. Now we're going to do this. Or you might not be done with that, but now we need to move to this. So some of those things that parents can work with their kids in the summer, not just academically, but also socially. So they received those readiness materials, and these were offered both in English and Spanish. So we had the workbook both in English and Spanish for our students, and this one too. So they got the parent guide, they got the resources, and then they got information about summer school. So summer school is happening right now. It was 9 days of instruction, half days. We have 125 students enrolled at 3 of our sites. So the sites kind of paired up. We have summer work going on at some sites, so they weren't able to hold the summer school. The focus is on kinder readiness. It's not on any certain curriculum, but it's about those skills that'll help the kids be more successful, how to do school basically. So it's 9 days of how to transition activities. How do I act at recess? How do I sit on the carpet? And I have 9 rock star kindergarten teachers who designed this program pretty much in 2 prep days that we got together. And I said, you guys are the experts in curriculum for kindergartners. What do kids need to be successful? So we have developed this passport. It's a kinder readiness passport that the teachers use to kind of design the program. What are these things that we can check off that show that a child is ready in that area? And then what can we do to give this then to parents at the end to say, here are the things you could really work on. Here's areas that your child is strong in, and here's areas that you could do more, and here are some resources to support that. So that's the passport you can see on those pages. So if you wanted to look at what those things were. The days, the summer school started with a parent and me kickoff, being that these are brand new incoming kinders, many of which who have never had pre-K or preschool experience. Day 1 was a 2-hour parent and me day. So you can see here parents sitting with their children doing activities on day 1. Colowate News tonight they came to interview some parents and show our Ready to Rock Kinder program. So that was on tonight. I'm sure Dan will be sharing that so you guys can see what that is. Interviewed some of the parents and me about the first day. You can see that they're in the building. Some of the parents said it made them feel better about starting kindergarten because now they've seen the building, they've met the teachers, they see the classrooms, they feel more comfortable. So basically, it's now 8 days of instruction, because we lost June 19th. But it'll culminate in a parent-teacher conference about readiness and provision of resources for parents to be able to help their child over the summer be really ready to rock kinder. So that's my presentation on Ready to Rock Kinder.
Do we have any questions or comments? Trustee Varner?
I know that Ms. Fuson may not have wanted new programs, but this is an excellent program. And I thank you for starting it. And I think it's going to be successful. And I think it'll help the kids really do that transition and the parents too. So I'm really happy about this program. So thank you.
It'll be bigger next year. I'm going to be partnering with Kendra Tuttle, who runs the CT program for educators, our high school kids who are learning to be educators. And we're going to combine on the parent nights. We're going to hold one each quarter at the high school where her kids will provide some childcare, and then I'll have a parent informational meeting, and then her students are going to create stations for parents to go to with their kids to learn about different ways and different games they can do to help learning. So we're going to continue to build that community partnership.
Thank you for the presentation. If parents missed, the Ready to Rock Kinder Parent Night, are those available for them to pick up?
Yes, I have copies, and I gave a copy to each school site, so they should have a copy, but they're all digital. So should any parent request, I can also provide them digitally if they want them printed out. All they would have to do is contact me by email, and I'm well willing to offer those to any students.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you for that. I really love that program for the littles and getting them ready. And I think particularly this year, these are kids that probably didn't have pre-K during the circumstances of the last few years. So I think it's really,
When we were able to provide materials for every child to take home after summer school, they all got a My First School book that has more readiness things that parents can work on, and a whole manipulative pack with chalk even, and a chalkboard, and wood pieces they can make every letter of the alphabet with. So they'll keep those and be able to keep learning at home.
great. Great work. Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and move on now to agenda item 12, which is the discussion and possible action to designate critical labor shortages for bus drivers and special education paraprofessional positions, and to allow acceptance of applications from retired teachers and educational support personnel to fill positions for bus drivers and special education paraprofessionals as allowed under NRS 286.523. For possible action, Dan Sadler.
Thank you very much, Dan Sadler, for the record. As you just shared, we are asking for support in following the process to designate bus driver positions and paraprofessional positions as critical needs. Let me get my form here. The bus driver critical needs approval expires on July 13th this summer. And then the special education paraprofessional expires September 14th. So I wanted to be proactive in just getting those, again, asking for your support. Just as kind of a reminder, in order to reemploy somebody who's retired, who's in Nevada PERS, we have to show that there's a need there. And clearly with these positions, there is a need. And anytime I look at vacancies, it's kind of a moving target day to day. So I believe you'll have a copy of the actual designation form here, which was completed last week. But currently we have 9 vacant bus driver positions. I'm happy to share that we were able to hire 3, but those are inexperienced bus drivers, so they're going to be starting kind of from scratch and getting their CDL through the process. But we do have 9 vacant positions. Just to kind of compare, we do have 27 bus drivers employed. So it's a 25% vacancy rate that we have for bus driver positions currently. And with special education paraprofessionals, we currently have 18 vacancies and 77 employed, which is a 19% vacancy rate. So I'm just here to ask for your support in submitting that request to Nevada PERS. And happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions? Go ahead, Trustee Varner.
I'm sorry, how long can a position be designated as a critical need position?
It's
there
a 2-year designation.
But then, I mean, can it be renewed after that 2 years? Is it kind of an indefinite thing, or is there a certain time frame that you can only designate a job as a critical need, like 4 years, 6 years?
Not that I'm aware of. As long as there's a need there, you can resubmit to have it be for critical needs. Clearly, like if we were able to fill all of our bus driver positions in 2 years from now, we were full with bus drivers, we would not be seeking this designation.
Thank you. I just didn't know if there was a cutoff.
Okay, go ahead.
For us new school board members, what other positions do we already have as critical need?
I'm glad you asked that. So we currently have all of our positions in the school district designated as critical needs. Special education teacher was last designated May 4th in 2022, so that'll be coming up here in the spring. We combined, and I can share this with you, I don't think I put up a copy in your packet, but like mathematics teacher is one that would be expiring this September, but last summer we asked for support for critical needs for all secondary and elementary teaching positions, so that covered that separately. So we don't need to go back and redo it specifically for mathematics, but we do have all of our positions in district covered, including substitute teacher.
Do we have any other questions or comments? This is an action item, so I would entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees pursuant to NRS 286.523, in light of the efforts made by the district to fill the open positions for drivers, and special education paraprofessionals, as outlined by Mr. Sadler today in the documents submitted, we are making the finding required by statute, and we adopt the written findings made by Mr. Sadler in the Nevada PERS forms presented to the Board of Trustees, and based on those written findings, we declare that the statutory provisions provided in NRS 286.523 have been met. There is a critical shortage of labor for bus drivers and special education paraprofessionals positions for a period not exceeding 2 years.
Motion by trustee Varner, a second by trustee Cassiopo. Do we have any other further discussion? Is there any public comment on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. The motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you for
Sadler.
your support.
Go ahead and move on to agenda item 13, which is discussion and possible action to direct the superintendent to issue Carson City School District's formal notice of intent to acquire at least 10 acres of real property located on the west side of Interstate 580, central to the project site known as the Lampa Ranch North Specific Plan Area, near the current terminus of Robinson Street, Carson City, Nevada, from the Myers Family Exempt Trust, the Ramirez Family, 1993, TR 10, 1893, RD Lampa LLC, Lampa Ranch East Hills LLC, and Terraces and Trip LLC, collectively the developer, as set forth in the development agreement by and between Carson City and the developer, dated November 16th, 2017, for possible action.
Thank you, President Crossman. AG Feeling, for the record, would you mind reading that one more time? Is that? As you are aware, discussed at two previous board meetings, the district has, in the city's development agreement on the North Lampa property, language in there to set aside 10 acres for the district. This evening, you have been provided with a notice of intent to acquire the property, which we would then, upon your approval, forward on to the developer and begin moving toward the end of acquiring the property.
So the property that we're speaking about, it's going to be north of Robinson Street when it goes all the way through, correct? And then is it all of that property from Goldust West to Robinson Street, from the freeway to the high school? Or
It's not. It doesn't stretch that far north and south. I'm trying to think exactly where the breakoff is. So it is it is immediately adjacent to the high school property, and it is on Robinson Street. Gosh, wish I had a map. I believe it goes back in line to where the solar panels end. I don't know if that's helpful. Oh, do you know?
no, I mean how close? I know it aligns with the solar panels because it's aligns with the solar panel going east. Does it acquire all of it to the freeway?
No, it doesn't. So it's, and there's actually in the plan that the city shared with us, there will end up being a road between the current Carson High property and that 10 acres. There's another road on the other side. There's still developments, housing development happening to the east of that 10-acre lot going on to the freeway. So it doesn't extend all the way. There's still going to be properties there.
Okay, and then, so I was asked by a member of the public that previous to my election here, the school district, did they or did they not discuss what would possibly be the intention of and the building of? And to my knowledge, nothing, but can you clarify that?
Sure. Yeah, no, we had several conversations about that through our facility master planning process and even on into bond oversight. I think initially, when we were looking at projections for enrollment, and you have to remember, I know I just presented enrollment projections that show a downward trend. Back in 2018, I think it was, we had the last round of projections. And at that time, the trend in the district, the district enrollment was growing at that time. And so that's one of the main factors that is considered when they do projections. And then they're also looking at the number of developments and how many students they're expecting to yield from those. And that was expected to be higher than what we've seen right now. So as we were looking at that and how many students of different ages that we were expecting, really, we were expecting at the time over 1,800 individual units to be developed in the Lampa Ranch area. The talk at the time was, look at some point, based on all the growth in the community, we would need at least 2 more elementary schools. We would need 1 more middle school. And unless you wanted Carson High to have 4,000 kids, we would need a second high school. And so the initial plan with that was there was concern, especially at that point with the elementaries and middle schools, to build potentially a K through 8 facility as kind of a transition point to keep pressure off of the elementaries and the middle schools from getting too big and eventually transitioning that building into something else. There was also talk at the time of potentially doing like a 9th grade building just to ease pressure off at the high school. And I think it depended on how that growth was going to happen and where the populations were. I think those are the 2 primary ideas that had come up at that time.
But I
But
think,
it's to
but I
clarify,
think at this
nothing.
point, we don't have a
Right.
plan as what to do
Right.
with the property. There's not very many 10-acre sites available in the city. This is an agreement that provides this to the district at a significant savings. So what we do with it will benefit the students in the future in whatever way that looks like. Is it a performing arts center? Is it another school site? Is it something with CTE? I think it's okay to go forward with it, even if we don't have a definitive plan for what we're going to put on that site at this time.
I just wanted to clarify that we do not have a definitive plan.
Oh,
That
sure.
is correct. That's,
And I would just say, I think from my perspective, the most important reason to acquire it is simply to have options, right? That there are value in having those options. So.
They found the map.
Sure. Spence Werner for the record, just to, if you want to look at this, I don't have a way to draw a fancy line here, but the 10 acres will roughly be about right here. Kind of comes out to a little bit of a point right there. And then there. So it would front Robinson, our current solar array, and there would be a road on each side of it.
I was just curious, we're doing an intent to acquire. When would we actually be able to get title to the property, I guess, or to physically acquire it?
Quickly, so once we issue the notice of intent to acquire, we'll open an escrow account for the actual transaction. It's important to note that we weren't actually party to the agreement that granted us this property, but what that agreement provides is that once we issue this notice to acquire, escrow is opened and will result in a 10-year payment of $1,000 per dwelling that's built. At the end of that 10 years, we pay whatever the balance is of the purchase price that we cover, not to exceed $150,000, and escrow will close at that point and title will vest.
So I'd like to make a motion. I move the Carson City School District Board of Trustees direct the superintendent to issue the district's formal notice of intent to acquire at least 10 acres of real property located on the west side of Interstate 580, central to the project site known as the Lampa Ranch North Specific Plan Area near the current terminus of Robinson Street, Carson City, Nevada, as presented.
Motion by trustee Walker, second by trustee Walt. Do we have any further discussion? Do we have any public comment? Seeing none? All in favor? Aye. The motion carries. Go ahead and move on to agenda item 14, which is discussion and possible action to approve the renewal of the contract of employment as superintendent of schools with Andrew Fueling for the period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2027 for no net increase in compensation during the first year and discretionary increases for every year thereafter, aspirationally consistent with increases provided to other administrators in the district, and for revision of certain terms of the contract as presented for possible action. So this is my agenda item. After Mr. Fueling gave his notice of intent to renew his contract, I met with him and I didn't have that other paper. Met with Mr. Fueling and legal counsel and went through some of the things of the contract. I think it's significant that you should know that Mr. Fueling did not request a salary increase. During the first year, he wanted it to remain the same. And the increases thereafter were actually requested by me. I wanted to build into this contract some protections, knowing that this board for 9 years did not give a raise to former superintendent Mr. Stokes. So I wanted to have something in the contract so as we got busy with business, we didn't overlook the fact and be the only district that never gives a raise to our superintendent. So what made sense to me was to look at what kind of increases by the salary schedule do the administrators get, because in my mind, the superintendent is most comparable to the administrators. So what is proposed is a $5,000 increase, not this first year, but after those years, as at the discretion of the board. If we hit a fiscal cliff, I'm sure that's something that we can address each year. And that $5,000 amount is less than the 3%. Currently, the administrator's salary schedule provides a 3% increase each year as a merit increase. And so this is about 2.9%. It will go down each year as it goes up, but we also, in looking at percentages, didn't want to give a percentage rate because at the higher end of the salary scale, that would get compounded and get a little too excessive. There are some language changing the evaluation as far as how, because we're currently working on that. So it is subject to a form and format that we will approve and that he will agree to as well. And also included in there is some language for severance pay, which I requested that we put that in there. The first year, 1 year contract was somewhat a probationary type contract. It was only for 1 year. So that is consistent with other superintendents throughout, that there is a 6 month, or as worded here, half of the 50% of the salary for severance pay, should there be that. The term is for 4 years. That was an idea to provide some stability to the district. We are looking at having multiple principals getting near retirement age and having a superintendent in place as long as everyone is agreeable for that amount of time helps with keeping stability in the district. It helps with the this increase in funding that we've received and making sure that we stay on track on how to make improvements for our kids. I think it's important to have that stability. Do you have any questions on this, if I have missed anything in explaining it? Okay, yes.
So my suggestion is in number 6, so with the evaluation section, I just have a language suggestion. Instead of each year twice in the same sentence. The first one, so it would read, the employer shall evaluate and assess in writing the performance of the superintendent at least once annually prior to December 31st of each year during the term of this agreement, instead of, because when you have it two in there, it gets a little bit confusing. So that's my suggestion. But good job if that's my big thing.
I'm
Good
gonna,
job,
I'm gonna
Laurel.
thank you for correcting our legal counsel on that one. So annually, okay. So I'm sorry, just. Okay, do we have any other questions? Trustee Walt?
So on page 6, can you just address the reason for the language change on C and on F?
Mr. Russell, if you can help with that.
Your mic?
I wanted to keep it off after that last comment. So on paragraph 12C, is that the first one you're talking about, Trustee Walt?
Yeah, mine says 5C, but yeah.
Page 5, but paragraph 12?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah, line 5C. Mhm. Yes, 12C.
So in the first year of the superintendent's contract, it provided for 1 month of salary or severance pay in the event of a termination without cause. In other words, if the board just decides that they want AJ to go elsewhere, in the first year, it provided for 1 month severance pay. As President Crossman stated, because this is a longer contract and we're past the first year, she thought that should be 6 months. And so we took the language to be 50% of the annual salary, and we wanted it to be then in effect because there are those annual potentials for $5,000 increases. So the language is meant to clarify that it'll be 50% of the annual salary then in effect at the time of termination. And paragraph F, I assume you're talking about the removal of the language at the end. And that's because the superintendent is as you guys heard throughout some of the discussions tonight, a full-time employee. The agreement provides elsewhere that he's entitled to the vacation and paid time off leave that accrues to other administrators, so it was unnecessary language. Sure.
So Ryan, one of the things, I think, Laurel, I like that you wrote in that mechanism for us to incentivize the superintendent doing a good job. And I think that that's something that we've missed. My question is, if we have a year, let's say the legislature gives the school district a lot more money, and we negotiate more sizable increases for our other groups, can we as a board, so it says within our guidance, but we could give more, we could give less than 5,000. That's just a suggestion. So as a board, we could vote to make it consistent with what we do for all employees, or we could say, listen, Mr. Billing, you're not cutting it this year. We're not giving you something extra. Correct?
So the short answer is correct. The operative language that we put in the agreement is designed to be consistent. That was for several reasons. One, because AJ might have a year way better than everybody else, or one way worse. Frankly, it's designed to give you flexibility, and it's designed to avoid any appearance of negotiating for himself when dealing with the units and negotiations as those things come up, which is why it was a flat fee, but it is still absolutely discretionary in the board on what that amount is going to be. And frankly, it's discretionary with the superintendent. If it's not enough, then he can invoke the termination clauses just like you guys can.
Do we have any other questions or comments? This
Yes,
isn't, go ahead.
Just this question on page number 7, line number 6. I think there's a typo there. It says neither of them has relied thereon in connection with her. Is that right? Number 7, on page number 7. I'm on the original, not the draft.
So while I pull this up, what you have in your packet is the red line with the highlights. Highlights show everything where an area was changed. Language within the highlights that's stricken through is removed. Language that is red or whatever other color not stricken through is left in. You're on page 7.
I've got where she's at, where it's, the parties further acknowledge that any payments or representations that may have been made by either of them to the other prior to the date of executing this agreement are of no effect, and that neither of them has relied thereon in connection with her or its dealings with the other. Should it be her or should it?
I see, it's section 15. It's the last line of section 15.
Yeah. And she's wondering if her should be there. I think, because I'm one of the,
Yeah, it is. No, I think that's a good catch.
okay,
It should not be her.
okay.
That one's my fault too.
Okay, Mike?
So I'll move the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the renewal of the contract with Andrew Fueling as Superintendent of Schools for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2027, with no net increase in compensation during the first year and subject to an annual increase of $5,000 at the discretion of the employer, including other revisions and amendments to the language of the contract as presented.
I'll second it.
So motion by trustee Walker, and I heard a second from Cassiopo and Barnard. So
Goodman.
you guys want to fight over who the second is, or we'll just write it down?
I'm not a fighter, so give it to Joe.
Okay. Cassiopo, okay.
And Madam President, before you go out to public comment, it should just be noted that with the motion approving the contract as changed here tonight, the superintendent is agreeable to entering it as well. So
Oh.
assuming the motion passes, it can be signed and put into effect.
Okay, okay. And I guess that's something we should ask. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Fueling, are you agreeable to the terms of the contract? Oh, should I not do that now? Should I wait till?
It's on the record. You're good.
Okay.
I don't know what to do.
He's indicated a thumbs up. I'm not sure if he's making,
I think it would have to be after we approve the contract.
after the, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So do we have any further discussion on, well, at least he's indicated he's willing. He can ratify or whatever. Do we have any other comments or discussion among the board members? Do we have any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Mr. Fueling, are you agreeable?
I am, and thank you so much. I appreciate all of you working with you. You're an amazing board, and just everyone in the district, and the support this year has been absolutely overwhelming. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 15, which is discussion and possible action to approve the process, form, and substance for completing the superintendent's annual evaluation for the 2023 calendar year for possible action. Let me begin by saying we can keep what we had if you guys don't like anything new. But this is my attempt and Renee's excellent work with creating tables to create a document that in what I could figure out managed to take the rating scale that we discussed in the prior meeting that you guys wanted to use. What I began doing, I kept the first draft of where Joe and I had met and we're combining the black and red draft in there. That was combining our old form into smaller categories, right? Just for your information, I spent the first two categories numbering the black bullet points and the red bullet points and trying to figure out where each statement matched up with it. Like under part 1, I had, under vision, culture, and instructional leadership, under 1.1, I said this satisfies black bullet point 3, 4, 5, and red bullet point 2. I did that for 2 of them, and then I went, these are good statements. I'm not going to go through and try to do this because it also is really confusing, I think, to try to say where that fits up. So the language of the I guess the standards, the 1.1, 1.2, those are modeled after the same language in the Churchill County Superintendent's Evaluation Form set with our rating scale. And I thought if anybody misses something in some language from our old form that you want added in there, we can make some adjustments to it. But to me, as I read through and did a deep dive into what those statements were actually saying, I saw that our bullet points were encompassed in each one of those categories. So I'm open to any thoughts on what that is. I added the part 2, even though we don't have goals yet. If we wanted to do it, because that seems, I actually liked the part 2, the superintendent's annual objectives. We of course will have to work with Mr. Fueling on that, but I think those are some good goals. We kind of already do them, right? Where we say we'd like to see our graduation rate improve. We'd like to see some things, but I think those are, and of course they would be tied into our strategic plan goals, but maybe for each annual year, the strategic plan is 5 years. If we've got an annual goal of, hey, let's really focus on growth in one of these areas, that would be something we could add and develop. So if you like it, if you want to change it, if you want to go back to what we were doing before, anything is up for discussion. Go ahead, Mike.
First of all, thank you for doing this, Laurel, because this is a lot of work.
Well,
And
honestly, I didn't make the tables. Renee made the tables.
Renee,
That
thank
is a
you.
lot of work.
That is a lot of work. So just plainly speaking, I don't care what we use to evaluate as long as it's agreeable with the superintendent and fair and it's balanced. My question, which I'm still kind of processing in my brain, and I understand at the last meeting when you talked about the not observed. So effectively, that would be giving the same as a score of 0. And so I'm wondering, well, but I mean, if you're still not adding a number in there, I'm just wondering, here's my thought for the board, and you guys, the majority will decide this. As the evaluators, I think it's our job to look for these things. If we don't see them, then we need to have those conversations. As a principal, I don't get to say, well, I didn't see any student discourse, and then just not rate that section of their NEPF. And so in my mind, I'm just afraid if we do that, whereas I understand as somebody who's new and you're trying to get your feet under your ground, I just think that I'm going to push us to be evaluators, and it's our job to make sure that we're getting that information. And if we don't have it, then that's the conversation we need to say. We know every December-ish we're going to be evaluating. So you get to July and you've never heard anything about a goal. That might be a conversation where the superintendent, we need an update on this or whatnot. So that's my only concern. I don't want to unfairly hamper his or her evaluation, because we're not doing our job, but I'll go with the will of the board with that.
Okay. Go ahead, Trustee Walt.
So I don't think it does, because it says that it will not be included in the average. So like, say for example, I don't witness him to ensure that all staff have district-specific professional development that directly enhances their performance, improves student learning, and ensures safety. So say that I've not had a presentation, I haven't witnessed that, I haven't, then I can opt to, rather than just going, okay, well, I don't know, so I'm just gonna go satisfactory. If I do, what my objective was, is to say that if I haven't observed it or don't see it, then it just wouldn't be, it's not gonna take away, it's not going to lower his score.
And just for the devil's advocate, at the same time, well, and I'm just trying to get this right for us. But at the same time, say like if I'm a trustee that's kind of lazy and I'm like, this is the only thing I've seen, so I rate them in half of the categories, and then they're going to get a boosted rating because maybe they aren't doing those other things. And I'm saying not observed, and instead of really marking them down for that, we're only rating them for the things that we have seen, or we're picking and choosing the things that we're interested in. So my concern is long-term. I don't think this board is being lazy. I'm just saying there's a tendency for inconsistency, and I think the point that we've been arguing for the last year and a half is that we want something that's consistent and less subjective, is my thought.
So then I have a question for Mr. Fueling. If you went through all of this, you know, I mean, did you participate in adding or taking away from any of these practices?
So, sorry, as far as editing this document?
The professional practices, you know, did you have any input on what you think is fair for us to be evaluating and which ones you would think that we would not be able to evaluate because it's not within our purview? Did you go through these to see? I would just want to make sure that it's fair.
Yeah.
That you're seeing that, yes, this is a practice that they will witness.
Sure. I guess that's a good, I didn't think about it in terms of how observable it is. I don't think what is here, I mean, going through it, I didn't think it was unfair in any way. I think it's reasonable consideration. I didn't think about it in terms of how easy it is to observe maybe some of it.
I would just like to say I agree with Mr. Walker. I do not like the not observed, and I would recommend that we take that out.
I think what, I mean, as I go through and look, and maybe it's because we've done the evaluation more times, but in our other older form, I would read each thing and I would say, okay, have I, what can I think of where this has been, what's been happening in this area? And I think that the standards that are put forth under 2.1 or 2.2, you know, each of those gives me a chance to go, okay, what programs are in place? What are we making sure that are we doing? Are we funding professional development? Are we making sure that staff is receiving professional development? Do all of our schools have school improvement plans? You know, those type of things are things that I look for. And the other thing we can always do when we're doing this evaluation is ask questions of our superintendent before we get to it when we're going through and say, can you explain to me where this, what you would see? How has this been done? What are you going to say something, Mike?
Well, and I was going to say, there's a couple of years that we did have Rich do that, and that is helpful. And I think that the years we didn't have Rich do that, we had talked about we need to have some kind of status check somewhere in the year. And so whether it's quarterly, and that includes the goals of our strategic plan, because it always feels like every December we're like, oh, well, we didn't do this, we didn't do this. And so maybe it's something to set up now that we're kind of entering into a formal contract with AJ and set it up so maybe we do review these things, maybe just like when our teachers are evaluated or our principals are evaluated, they do their pre or their post observation forms, which kind of gives evidence, and where he could go through and self-rate himself and kind of give some points of what he thinks. And if you're not comfortable saying I'm superior in this area, you could even just list some different artifacts that we could look to. And I think that would help, because really at the time of year we do this, it's so busy for all of us that it's usually one of those things I get the reminder from Renee and I'm like, oh, I need to carve out an hour right now. And so I think we could streamline the process to help us make good decisions with this also.
Did you want to add anything, Mr. Russell?
Just if it's helpful for you guys, there is language built into the form that you guys have that is sort of aspirationally instructive, which includes asking the superintendent to do a self-evaluation based on the same form. And what some other districts do, based on the conversation you guys are having, is if you're going to include an unobserved category, you put an asterisk on it, or you explain it that it's to be used as sparingly as possible, reasonable best efforts to observe each category. But then it puts an onus on the trustees to do what you're saying, Trustee Walker, which is try and observe it, but it also allows for those things that maybe you just can't.
If it's something we can't observe, maybe that's something that shouldn't be on the evaluation, honestly.
That makes sense to me. If we can't see it, how can we evaluate it?
And part of that, you guys, for what it's worth, is why the contract has much more flexible language on the form and process for the evaluation, because if you guys choose to adopt this or whatever you choose to do tonight, if it shows in application boots on the ground that it doesn't work, your hands aren't tied by having to modify a contract. You just remove
Modify
it or add
this.
to it or take it out. It gives you flexibility.
So, and I mean, this is the tough part because it's basically we're document creation in a public meeting. So it's a little bit messy when we're going through this process. I'm okay with taking out the unobserved. If the majority of the board is in agreement with that. I think, I mean, we are, I think 6 categories is quite a large scale. And so narrowing it down to 5 is a little more manageable, I think, a little more, if that's what we want. And I think with where we're at with this, form right now, we're open to inputs if you want it. The other thing I was going to point out, actually Renee pointed it out because we hadn't had it before, but when we get to part 2 and we're talking about the superintendent's annual objectives, Churchill had it set up where they described the SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That's one way to the goal set. There are a variety of other ways. So I don't know that we as a board have said we totally want to do all SMART goals. So that to me is open. I put that language in there because that was their model. But if you guys want, sometimes I think some goals that we make are not as specific because we leave the actual implementation up to individual sites or to this superintendent. So I'm not sure but if everybody's fine with SMART goals, then we're fine with SMART goals. I just don't want to put that on you without you guys going, yeah, we like that.
So here's one other question, and whether it's SMART goals or not, when time frame wise are we expecting these goals to be set? Because here we are, fiscal year starts in July. Are we wanting goals set by August 1st? Are we wanting them by, you know what I'm saying? Because December is going to be here before we know it, and we don't want goals like in November and then the next month we're trying to rate them.
So, I mean, I'm kind of thinking which is kind of the sticky thing on where this is, right? Because we'd have to work together on the goals. And it kind of seems like they would be a school year type goal, right? Like this is the goal for our fiscal year, for our school year. But then we're going to get to December and we're only going to be halfway through. So this first time, then after that, it would be there. So my idea would be hopefully we could have goals in place with this evaluation before school starts. Does that seem doable and maybe as close to, I know Mr. Russell told me before that the sooner we can get this closer to the approval of the contract, the more it makes sense that he knows what he's being evaluated on. So we don't want to wait too long to delay this approval of.
Would that work for you? I know that this is going to be a big summer of looking at legislation and, well, I mean, is that going to make a hardship? I want you to focus on what's important.
Sure.
Obviously.
I appreciate that. No, I don't think that timeline is a problem at all. We can certainly get that done.
Go ahead.
I just have a couple things on page 1 of 16. In the middle of the page where it's in blue, model, the Board of Trustees should participate in the process from start to finish, and the board chair. Are we using chair or should we put president in there? Just a minor thing.
Okay, so do we want to, I didn't check to see. The board chair is the board president, so we'll just make sure, you want it to be president? And then we'll make sure it's throughout.
And then speak and use the same terminology.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll just,
And then, on page 2, and this is very minor, on paragraph 8, shortly thereafter, board members meet in public meeting, should just be an A there, or a public meeting, minor. And then what I
if
do
you don't
like,
like it without the A, that's Churchill County's fault, because literally that one I just cut and pasted.
no blame here on anybody. What I do like about this new form, if I could continue just a minute, is on 5, I think this is kind of what we talked about. The superintendent makes quarterly progress reports to the board and on district goals. That would help us in the evaluation process for sure. If we're getting these on a quarterly basis, we're not waiting until a month before the evaluation's due. So I do like that part a lot.
I agree. I think that quarterly reporting would be helpful. I mean, when I read a question like on page 4, 1.2, demonstrates a deep understanding of quality instruction and consistently promotes effective instructional programs and high expectations for student learning outcomes. It's really a mouthful when you think about it. It's a lot to absorb in one box. And I think, that alone, I scratched my head a few times when I read it going, how do I really do a good job evaluating him on that? I have to dig deep to understand what it takes to make sure he has a deep understanding. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying to change it. I'm just saying quarterly reports would help in that process. And then if I feel like I still haven't got what I need, I could always, call and schedule a meeting with Superintendent Fueling and we can discuss it. I also want to say nice job. It's like Trustee Walker said, it takes a lot of work to put these together, and we collaborated early on, and then you ran with this towards the end, so it's all credit to you. So thank you and Renee for pulling this together.
Again, I'm going to thank Churchill County School District because I looked at their form, I liked their language, and that was what to me condensed and did that. You were going to say something.
Going to help you guys along a little bit if you want. You can approve parts 1 and 3 of the form as presented, subject to the item being brought back to finalize the goals in part 2. At least that way you have the criteria in place in conjunction with the approval of the contract.
And I would just say, if it's whoever makes the motion, if you're wanting the unobserved category to be removed, that might be, that and the other language changes. That would make sense.
Laura, I do have a couple of suggestions. And I apologize. I know you put a lot of work into these, and I'm like, I should not mess it up, but I'm just going to suggest, and then you guys can, decide. So on page number 1, number 3. So where it says it is recommended that the superintendent provide his or her own self-assessment with evidence to the board. Now, based on what I'm hearing, we are going to expect that he's going to provide us a self-assessment, correct? To help us with the evaluation. Is that what we're looking into or no?
From the discussion we've had, I think that's.
I personally found that very helpful last year when we asked for the goals and the self-evaluation of the superintendent. I found it very helpful to be able to evaluate him. So if that's the case, then may I recommend that we go with the superintendent shall provide his or her own self-assessment with evidence to the board? And then continue now with the sentence, board members should use the superintendent's self-assessment and supportive evidence to evaluate their employee. instead of saying, when completing their own evaluations. I personally found that a little confusing, where it says when completing their own evaluations.
I think the language there is talking about your own evaluation, and it's plural, but it's your own, each board member's or board
And I
own
understand.
evaluations of the
And I understood that,
superintendent.
yeah, but
Okay.
I'm wondering if we can make it a little more clear, if it's okay. If you guys are okay with how it reads, then I'm perfectly fine. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. I think it makes sense as written.
Okay.
I understand the wanting to change it to a shall, which would make it mandatory, but I kind of like that little permissiveness in there that they should. What if you have another 2020 and you've got a crazy year, and maybe something's going on and you don't get all of this? I like giving the flexibility of a
Flexibility,
should as
okay.
opposed to a shall. But that's just me personally. If you
Okay.
guys all want something different, we can change the language.
It's his evaluation. So he doesn't do that at his own risk. I mean, honestly, we're his employers. So, I mean, we're saying this is what you need to do. If that evidence isn't there and you haven't provided your justification, then that's kind of on him as the professional.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm okay
Oh,
with
you're
what,
good.
yeah, sorry,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
So whatever everyone decides, I'm okay. I just wanted to point that out. I thought it would be helpful. And actually, I take that back. I do have another question on page number 3. Under consider these norms and values when conducting the superintendent's evaluation. It says give the review. Is that correct? Give the review the time it deserves, or give the reviewer? Give
I think it's meant to be the way it's written.
give the review
Yeah, give the review
the
itself
time
the
it deserves. Okay, okay, very good.
Don't do it in 15 minutes
Okay,
before
perfect.
it's due.
Yeah,
Thank
don't
you.
do it. Don't do it. at
Don't
5
rush
o'clock.
it. Perfect. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions or comments, or do we want to move forward with this, or?
Okay, I'll move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the process and form for completed the superintendent's annual evaluation for the 2023 calendar year as presented for sections 1 and 3 with the omission of not observed, unobserved, and goal setting to be determined before the start of the school year.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion. Turn off my mic. A motion by trustee Walker and a second by trustee Walt. Do we have any further discussion? Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I guess we'll just make sure this is agreeable to you too. Okay. Well, let's see. We've got agenda item 16 now, approval of the consent agenda for possible action.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Okay, he used his microphone. Trustee, motion by trustee Ramirez, second by trustee Varner with his microphone on. Do we have any further discussion among the board members on the consent agenda? Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion is approved. We'll go ahead and move to agenda item 17, informational items only for discussion, or informational items for discussion only. No action will be taken. Do we have any questions or comments on the informational items? Seeing none, I will move on to agenda item 18, requests for future agenda topics.
Yes, I did. And now I'm looking at Mr. Walker because I told him and now I forget. Oh, is there can we get, it was brought up in the presentation, I believe yeah, the MTSS about the interventionists. Is there any way we can get a presentation on that? What do they do? Who, not so much who they are, but what schools are they in? I just don't know, much about that program. If we could, that'd be great.
I've got that written down. Do we have any other requests for future agenda topics? Seeing none, we are moving to item 19, adjournment, and we did it before 9 o'clock. So there was some pretty good meat on this agenda. So thank you.